and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
And I'm Merryn Johns.
Welcome, Merryn.
I'm back.
From Curve Magazine.
From Curve Magazine.
Good to see you again.
Glad to be
of
here.
course, another busy week in the news. But Trump lost another court case, not his impeachment yet, in his quest to ban service members with HIV.
I can't believe it. That's disgraceful. And in answer to that, we have the third annual women's marches are back on this Saturday all around the country.
In Michigan, activists are moving to put LGBT rights on the ballot for a popular vote this year.
And a man who posed as a gay sex worker extorted other gay men online in Los Angeles for years. He's now facing 10 years in prison.
The Reclaim Pride March is on again for 2020 in June.
And we have a little bit of progress and good news out of Taiwan, Lithuania, Poland, Bhutan, and Brazil. But there's trouble in Indonesia and South Africa.
And in Taiwan, the pro-LGBT president was reelected in a landslide.
Such good news. And we're going to give you the LGBT lowdown on the Oscar nominations.
So we start with what's going on in the world, and our hearts obviously go out to the people of your homeland in Australia with the wildfires. Not just the people, but the wildlife in Australia as well.
Who cares about the people?
Well,
no, I'm Australian. I've been here for 15 years, and I always like to think of home as a safe place, and it was a little bit shocking to me these past few months to realise my home is on fire. At one time there was 500 fires burning around the continent, and the continent is the size of the United States. Exactly, if you put a map of Australia over
continental United States.
The continental United States, and not Canada, just the USA. But that's large. And at one point there was like 120 fires burning completely out of control. And these are in beautiful national parks, forests. It's devastating.
But you're still burning coal too.
Listen, it's very interesting. It's really exposed the fault lines of politics in my country.
Well, it certainly is apocalyptic, and it makes us think of end times. And our hearts also go out to the people of Puerto Rico with the. And I haven't heard the president mention that, but in the aftermath of the earthquake. But we want to tell you that Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, has awarded $100,000 in emergency grants to Australia. And they did similar stuff in response to the California wildfires. And in terms of Puerto Rico, they've already donated $500,000. This is Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS to Puerto Rico since the devastation of Hurricane Maria.
Oh, it's wonderful. But don't you think these charities shouldn't have to be doing the heavy lifting, that they have enough to worry about?
No, they shouldn't. But then the Department of Housing and Urban Development in the United States is withholding Puerto Rico's hurricane aid now. They missed the deadline to transmit $10.2 billion that the Congress authorized. So, because the president doesn't like Puerto Rico. I mean, folks, well, I don't have to tell you. You watch the show, but...
And the right wing will tell you Puerto Rico is completely beyond redemption, and it's corrupt, and it can't get the aid there.
No, that's the White House they're talking about.
Well, yeah.
All right. Did you watch the Democratic debate?
I did. I was up all night with that.
Oh, God. Well, not much LGBT content other than
Warren mentioned HIV, AIDS, meds. There was a brief mention of transgender people.
We had a gay candidate, I believe, Pete Buttigieg.
I like him.
But that didn't get, freedom for all Americans criticized the failure to discuss the Equality Act, which is our LGBT rights bill, federal bill, and the fact that we're facing this Supreme Court decision on whether we're covered under sex discrimination, these cases that we're awaiting. And by the way, our friend Art Leonard, who's the professor who comes on the show, he says, that decision may come sooner rather than later.
Right.
We'll see.
I mean, it's dangerous. Somebody has to address the general rollback of rights at a very grassroots level. It's happening here in this country.
Yes. I also think watching it, of course, they talk about the existential threat of climate change, and they talk about the healthcare crisis and all these things. You also, as Harvey Milk was told when he was running for office by a guy named Art Anyos, who was the mayor of San Francisco at one point, you got to give him hope. You know, I mean,
Who was the most hopeful candidate? Who expressed that?
Last night?
Last night.
You know,
for you?
Well, I mean, I think you know, Buttigieg sort of acts the most cheerful.
He's
you know.
so. I did really like him last night. I know he's got such a baby face, and you look at him and you think, "What? You're a millennial. How could I vote for you? You don't have enough experience."
Yeah.
But there was something so idealistic and coherent about what he was saying.
I don't have a candidate. And I will vote for whoever gets nominated, and I'm not going to endorse anybody. I obviously lean towards the more progressive candidates who are going to bring about the kind of change we need, not just to win an election, not just because we need it, but to get reelected in the future. You got to do something. You can't just be for the status quo.
But what do you think about Bernie Sanders telling everybody that he did not say to Elizabeth Warren that people would not elect a female?
I am very depressed by this development, which has been ginned up by CNN. Somebody told somebody who told them, and I'm disappointed that they're fighting with each other now. We don't need that now. We need unity.
She was pretty gracious about it. There was nothing but a little smile on her face, and she said, "Bernie's my friend." So.
All right. I hope people forget about it by the time we get around to the election.
Right.
And the other thing is the moderators. They. At every single one of these forums, they hammer the candidates. How are you going to pay for health care? How are you going to pay for your plan for health care? Health care. Well, how are you going to pay for the wars? How are you going to pay for farm subsidies? How are you going to pay for anything? I mean, why is it always health care that we can't have? Which we don't. You have a better system in Australia?
We have affordable healthcare, we do, but that is something that our politicians keep seeking to adopt an American system, and I keep thinking, it's not going to work, please don't change it. We have a good system in Australia where it's affordable for most people.
Why aren't Americans more jealous, is what I want to know, of the rest of the world. By the way, we're taping today on Martin Luther King actual birthday. The holiday is on Monday. He would have been 91 today. He was killed when he was 39, and I remember that when I was a kid. And I posted a quote today on Facebook from him. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Hope. You got to give him hope. That's the thing. I mean, look, I couldn't stand Ronald Reagan, but that's what he proposed, was a rosy vision. Now, it's false, but people want to see that. They don't just want to hear about how bad things are. They want hope.
So who's your pick last night of the least favorite candidate? Who can we just excise from this lineup right now?
I may have to live with any of them, so I refuse to say. I mean, I think a lot of the analysis said, nobody killed themselves or anything. Bloomberg wasn't even there, of course, because he doesn't qualify, because he doesn't have individual donors other than himself. He's totally super funding his own campaign. I'm not a Bloomberg fan, but I do like the fact that he said, I've got 1,000 staff, and they will stay on to help elect the Democrat, whoever it is.
Good, yeah, that's good.
We're not partisan here, but we can't. But Trump is an existential threat. And speaking of which, he got another bad ruling on. They have a ban on people who are HIV positive in the military.
I want to ask him, give me one good reason to ban HIV positive Air Force personnel.
Yes. So they say in the court case, well, some countries don't allow people with HIV in, and we have to be able to deploy people to any place in the world at a moment's notice, and that is our reason for doing this. But the judges said, none of this is scientific. You're not up with the science on HIV. People become undetectable, et cetera. And we're not going to let this happen. And so
he's not up on the science.
In this case, it was the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals upholding a lower court decision based in Richmond. So, it was a very good decision.
And those two men are, pseudonymously, Richard Rowe and Victor Vo are able to continue serving, which is the most important thing.
Yes. I mean, it's grotesque what they're doing. I mean, come on. All right.
This is happening because of the advisor that Trump has right now. The woman, what's her name?
Jenna Ellis.
Who's
talk about her. We have a picture of her and the
sounds like a holy roller.
The dear leader. Well, talk about her. She This woman is now one of his chief legal advisors.
I don't want to know any more about this woman than I already know.
Well,
Thank you very much.
let's go through some of her quotes. Put her picture back up there, that smiley face. She called Obama's declaration of the Stonewall National Monument a celebration of sin.
In public, out in public.
When Star Wars said it was going to include a gay character, she wrote, "Why not a pedophile?" And she called the Democratic Presidential Forum on LGBT issues hate-based attacks on freedom of religion. She comes from the James Dobson Family Institute, and she is a nightmare. And these are the people.
She's a nightmare.
And, we're paying these people.
She's an advisor. I can't
We're
believe it.
paying these people. If you're a different kind of a woman, you can go to the women's marches this weekend on Saturday. Yep, across the country again.
I'm looking forward to it, and it's truly intersectional. They've done a lot of work to try and bring women together. I think it's really important, whatever our differences, put them aside, join up with other women this weekend.
And men can come too.
Yeah, I hope so.
Right. It's not like the Dyke March where they really don't want us in the march. I understand that. But this is these in 2017, this was the biggest march in the history of the world.
That's right.
Across the world. And they are going to take place in a lot of cities. Some people think we don't need it at this point. I think we do need to be out in the streets. In New York, we're going to meet at 72nd Street and Central Park West, and there's going to be a rally, and then they're going to march downtown. And there's another group, which was a split last year, but they're coming together.
I hope so.
They're going to meet in Foley Square down by the courts and come up and meet, I think, around, Trump area. So do that. And of course, if you want to know where there's one in your area, just Google it, Women's March, and put in, St. Louis, and you'll find something.
Yeah, I'm not happy about that split because with the rise in anti-Semitism, I just don't think it's conscionable. We can't have that kind of division when we're facing this situation.
No.
Whatever your views are on Israel, let's just put that one aside.
All those things. Okay. Also in the White House, Tony Perkins is an employee. He's a religious freedom commissioner under Trump, and he criticized the ousted U.S. ambassador to Zambia, Daniel Foote, who we've told you about, for going after Zambia for giving 15-year prison sentences for two men who had consensual gay sex. He called it obvious disrespect for other nations' values. By the way, who's been appointed to this Religious Freedom Task Force? Because there have to be some Democrats as well. Sharon Kleinbaum, the rabbi at the LGBT synagogue in New York,
right.
Congregation Beth Simchat Torah. I don't know how you could sit in the same room with Tony Perkins and work together on religious freedom. But
no, when you said Tony Perkins, I think of Psycho. So there you go.
And you would not be wrong. Also, the White House HIV/AIDS panel. 4 members said the campaign to end AIDS is being undermined by Trump's efforts to allow health care workers to act on their religious beliefs rather than on serving everybody who comes to them.
Yeah.
And they met with the guy who's the head of the Civil Rights Division at HHS, this Roger Severino, who's an anti-gay bigot. And they're asking the HHS Secretary, Alex Azar, to drop this proposed regulation, which says healthcare workers can do whatever the hell they want because people aren't going to be able to get their. This will end anti-discrimination measures for LGBT people and women seeking abortion.
It's a nightmare. I mean, some things just should be non-partisan and non-profitable. Some things, and the healthcare would be one of those things.
They don't believe in science. Except when they, need to cure their cancer or something, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, then they want science.
A good segue to Michigan and what's happening.
Why not?
Why not? Some business people are banding together and they're wanting to basically get around the GOP-controlled Senate.
Yeah.
And offer the public a referendum to vote on LGBT rights.
What
do you think of that?
Well, I think it's very unusual for us to say. We did it in Minnesota, I think, on marriage, where they weren't doing it, so
we did it in Australia.
You had to do
on marriage.
You had to do they made you. Yeah, we didn't want to do a referendum, but your conservative government insisted on it, so they did a referendum. And we won. And in Ireland, they had to do it because they were changing the constitution. But in Michigan, the legislature's not acting, and in that case, and they say, look, 66% of Michigan people support LGBT rights. Let's put it on the ballot. Let's get it passed that way.
Absolutely.
They elected an out lesbian as the Attorney General of
right.
Michigan, Dana Nessel.
That's right.
So I would say it looks promising.
There are a lot of progressives in Michigan, but with the GOP-controlled state Senate, it's defaulting to the right in such a controlled way that all those LGBT constituents are just going to be left behind. And this is a very unique loophole they're using, I think.
They are. Okay. We also want to remind you that the Reclaim Pride, Ann mentioned this, but the Reclaim Pride March will march again on Pride Day 2020. Which is the last Sunday in June. They're looking at a different route. There's a picture from this past year, not 1969, but they're going to have a town hall meeting Wednesday, January 29th, 7 to 9 p.m. at the People's Forum, 320 West 37th Street. Go to their website if you want more information. It's reclaimpridegyc.org. Ann is hanging in there with the organization of this march.
She's the best. She has to.
Yeah. Okay. A little side note here, Gavin Grimm, the transgender student activist, has been elected to the board of the ACLU.
And he's like 21 years of age, isn't he?
Fantastic.
Is he about 21 now?
It's fantastic.
But a lifetime of experience, so he's going to bring something special to that. I'm very happy.
Yes, he can run for Congress in 4 years.
Right.
More good news from Kentucky, Woodford County, Kentucky, population 26,368.
But it makes a difference.
They passed an LGBT rights ordinance. It's the first county to do so in 2 decades. 18 municipalities in Kentucky have now done it, and they're going to have a big rally in February. We'll tell you more about that later, to get the state bill passed.
Right.
I don't know that they would win a referendum there, but we're hoping to knock off Mitch McConnell if we can this year.
Oh. Loathsome creature. What about what's happening in Illinois while we're speaking about other states not on the coast?
Okay, Illinois. They are up. This is an interesting case. They're updating the birth certificate system to affirm the gender identities of trans people.
Parents.
Now, what happened here? A
transmasculine man carried a baby to term.
Right, because
because he can, and they want that reflected on the child's birth certificate rather
wants to be recognized as the father who gave birth to their daughter.
The father who gave birth to the daughter, exactly.
Because the parent who gives birth is now named mother/co-parent. And the transmasculine people do not always identify as male, all right? I know this is all new stuff for a lot of people, but, and they're worried about, it would out, if it says mother and he's the father, it would out him in the future when the birth certificate is presented at various places and things like that. So they're trying to be sensitive out there in Illinois. Everybody ought to get with the program.
God, if it can happen in Illinois, it can happen everywhere, don't you think?
Illinois is a pretty reliable, pretty reliable Democratic state now. It's got upstate, downstate, but they have a lesbian mayor in Chicago, right?
Yeah, it's language that people need to catch up with, transgender rights, because it is possible to identify as male and have a natural birth.
Yes.
And people need to get with that and accept it.
Yes. We're all working through this, including Hillary, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
All right, some other state news. So, all right, state legislative sessions are getting started and bills are being filed. There are 8 anti-LGBT bills in Florida. We don't know where these are all going to go. One makes it a felony for a doctor to provide the best medical care to trans youth. These are all nasty things. Another is one of those things that repeals all the local sexual orientation, gender identity ordinances in the state. It says you have to line up with the state. These are popping up all over the place. We will track them. And of course, in Virginia, we got a new Democratic legislature. We're expecting a lot of progress soon.
I hope so. Gosh, we need it.
California, however, the Senate there rejected a bill to ban unnecessary genital surgeries on intersex babies. The sponsor, Scott Wiener, says he's not giving up on it, but that's a big thing. Baby's born, ambiguous genitalia, things like that. Parents panic, doctor panics. What do you want to do? Let's make them one or the other. And they don't even know. So they just cut and the person ends up screwed up later because they say, I feel this way, and you cut this off, and hey, let me have some say about it.
It's a big issue because not all, like with transgender people, not all intersex people are the same or have the same relationship to their sex and their gender. So, and there can be often other medical complications to that. So I would argue that somehow we need a legislature that's flexible, but also can be interpreted by medical professionals on the best, on the needs of the patient.
Well, I mean, the question is whether this is necessary. This is emotionally necessary for some parents who just don't want to have an ambiguous
Well, they panic. It's got to be either or,
Right.
exactly. And unfortunately, you're right. Who gets to choose?
Right.
What physician do you have that
Right.
says this is a boy, not
Well,
a girl?
this
Or
is
this is
why
a girl.
this-
Often this is a girl, not a boy, because it's easier to make a girl.
And we're certainly against genital mutilation when it comes to women. We hear about this in certain cultures. But of course, I had no say in circumcision when I was born. And we have a lot of viewers here who say hold off on that. I mean,
Right.
that is also
You should
genital
get to
mutilation.
choose. It is. It's not exactly apples for apples.
Okay.
But it's similar in the sense that you didn't get to choose.
Right.
So.
Right.
And then you have to live with it.
It came up in AIDS where people would actually get circumcisions because they thought it made them less susceptible to it, et cetera. And there was some evidence of that. But of course, with good cleaning and things like that, you're not going to be susceptible to it. And of course, if people are taking their drugs, you're not going to get it anyway. All right, now let's move from the midsection to the upper section.
To the free the nipple? Are we talking
Yes,
about that?
please. Why
How
don't
did
you?
I know?
Why don't I let you do this story?
So there were three women, three women
Whatever.
arrested on a beach
New Hampshire.
in New Hampshire because they wanted to bathe topless, sunbake
Yeah.
topless, do yoga topless on the beach.
Yeah.
And so was this deliberate because they wanted to
I don't know.
test the law? What
But
do you
they did
think?
test the law and
They
they
did test the
lost.
law and they lost,
The
surprisingly.
court in New Hampshire said there's essentially different standards of nudity, traditional standards of nudity.
That are gendered, you see.
Yeah.
So this is what they're wanting to fight, and they're going to take it to the Supreme Court because they say it's inherently anti-woman.
And the Supreme Court wouldn't hear the case. That's the
they're
development.
not going to.
That's the
That's the
development
development.
this week. The Supreme Court declined to hear the case.
You know, I was on the one train the other day and there was a woman breastfeeding right there in public.
Yeah.
And it's a similar kind of situation that used to be against the law.
Oh, really?
Well, she's sitting there, you can see everything. And you know what? If you don't want to see it, look away.
Right.
That would be my advice.
Well,
if you're at a beach and somebody's topless, if you don't want to see it, don't look.
I live in a big building and on the courtyard, and there's lots of apartments across the way. And I'm the head of the tent. I was the head of the tent association. People were complaining about nudity in other people's apartments, and don't look. People are entitled to walk around nude in their apartments.
I do. I confess, it drives people crazy, but I do it.
And the landlord said the same thing. To the person who was complaining, if you don't like it, look away. Don't look at it.
my
Put
God.
the binoculars away.
I had a girlfriend who said, "Can you put a robe on? Can you put a robe on? Why do you walk around naked?" And I'm like,
If
I
you
don't know.
don't like it, don't look. All right, we've settled that, I hope. In California, this is a positive story. So there's this gay asylum seeker from Chad, and he's been here for like 9 years. And while he was being detained, ICE just put him on a plane and put him back to Chad. Wouldn't let him settle his case. So a federal judge stepped in and said, "You bring him back. You did not give him due
Wow.
process." He said the judge wrote, "Imprisonment or death in Chad would foreclose his ability to pursue his motion, wouldn't it?" So they're saying, well, now he doesn't have a passport, so we don't know what to do. The judge said, "You figure it out and get him back here."
"Wow,
right.
thank you, Judge."
Tennessee passed a bill to let adoption agencies discriminate against gays and Jews. I put it that way because
Why Jews?
it's religious freedom. It says, and this is who it affects. Mostly Christian agencies saying we want to only give our babies to Christian families because they're the good families. So they don't give it to Jews. They don't give it to gays because they don't like us. And, I don't particularly have a problem with this, but you can't have public money if you're going to do that. And that's the issue here. But Tennessee just said, no, that's fine. Let them continue discrimination with your tax dollars.
God, if I could have a do-over, I'd want a Jewish family this time round.
I mean, it's awful. All right. What else
I'm
have we-
obsessed with this. Speaking of schools and religious faiths, this woman who called in a bomb threat because she saw that her alma mater. Is this in D.C., right? But she was in California.
What a story.
So she calls in.
Well, her alma mater, it's a girls' Catholic school.
Right.
Should we get the name of it? Georgetown Visitation Prep down there in D.C.
Right, this is in D.C. So this woman who's extremely upset and offended that her alma mater is...
No, she didn't even go to the school.
She didn't?
She just read about it.
She just read about it?
She read about it.
I thought this was her school.
No, her name was Sonia Tabibzada. And she threatened to bomb the schools.
Not just bomb.
Effing kill your kids.
Some of the language here, which I think is not just a bomb threat. I mean, when I was in school, we had our school had kids prank call bomb threats all the time.
Again, what she's upset about, we're missing the headline. The school did a good thing.
We buried the lead.
It decided to, in their alumni magazine, to announce same-sex weddings of alumni. My school, Chaminade, I don't think is doing that. Maybe you've changed your mind out there on Long Island, boys' Catholic school I went to. But this school said, come on.
I think it's lovely. But how is her message? I'm going to burn that effing church. I'm going to bomb it, bitch. I'm going to effing kill you guys. I'm going to send you effing soldiers. Now, this is a terrorist threat to me. This is not a bomb threat anymore.
I don't think that the president has called it a terrorist threat, or Attorney General Barr has called it a terrorist threat. But
I'm going to effing blow up the school.
But she's indicted on 2 federal charges. So at least the quote-unquote Justice Department in some places is still working on behalf of the law.
So this is just a crazy person.
Her lawyer said, it's not as if she shouted fire in a crowded theater. It's worse.
It's much worse. Wow. And call it a mission from God. That's what she said.
Oh, my God. That's right. Her God.
Her God.
More bad news, San Francisco. Have you been to San Francisco?
Yes.
They're closing the Cafe Flor.
Oh, no.
The famous Cafe Flor there at the head of the Castro on Market Street there. It's where everybody hung out for 47 years. They're turning it into an event space, so it's not going to be the Cafe Flor anymore. Or maybe they'll still call it that, but it's not going to be what it was.
At least it's not going to be like a pharmacy or something.
No. Well, whatever. I mean, it's sad.
It's really sad.
It's sad. All right, so let's talk about this LA guy.
Oh, gosh.
So he's only 28 years old, but he's been doing this for 10 years. So he acts like he's a hooker.
Right.
And
he's posted Craigslist, Backpage.
Right.
And he's...
So you engage him.
Yep.
And you text him back and forth, and you say what you'd like to do. And then he says...
I'm going to go public with all of this, and I'm going to basically, if you don't give me money. So he's asking for $400 or $1,000 a month and shaking these guys down.
He got $4,000 a month in one case.
Wow.
He netted $250,000. Nobody turned him in for 10 years.
I'm so surprised it's not like this is happening in like South Dakota. This is in California, where you think people wouldn't be frightened of being extorted.
Well, people are afraid of being exposed as patronizing sex workers sometimes. I mean, I remember somebody from Washington once sent me the credit card records of a rent boy company because they wanted to know if there were any Republican politicians on it. Believe me, I handled this very discreetly. But the biggest users of these services are press agents. They're not using it for themselves. They're the ones who put their credit cards on the thing in order to get the client, the actor or the famous person on the thing. So that's who people don't want to be known as using that. You shouldn't be ashamed of it, but there it is. Anyway, this guy in L.A., we don't know whether he's gay or not. I mean, it doesn't say that he was gay. He pleaded guilty and he faces 10 years in prison.
Have you gotten that phishing scam via email yet where they email you and they say, Andy, I know all the porn sites you've been on, and if you don't pay us some money, we're going to publish all of the videos that you've been looking at?
I was once on a friend's computer, and it was from his business, and they apparently had been infected by a virus. This is about 10 years ago. And the screen freezes, and they say, we know you've been looking at pedophile porn, pay us this amount of money.
Oh my God.
And you immediately just shut the computer off. But it is obviously, obviously it's not true, but it's scary because even if it's not true, you can label somebody with this and get that thing. So, they cleared out the viruses at that at that place.
Wow.
But it is, yeah, it's frightening. Okay.
I want to talk about this lesbian divorce
Yes.
scenario. So where did this research, so a report's come out about
right.
gay marriage and
This is in the United Kingdom.
in the UK, who is getting divorced, what are the stats on this, and lesbian couples are far more likely to get divorced than gay men. I'm now one of those people. I'll tell you about that later. Shockingly, not my decision at all, but the research behind this is very interesting, and there are some theories why the statistics are nearly double.
So let's just, well, 3/4 of the divorces in the UK for same-sex couples are among women, and 26% among men.
You want my theory?
Well,
Why? How
go
is this
ahead.
happening?
Go ahead.
My
no.
theory is exactly what they say it is. So I think, first of all, women get married quicker than gay men, and I think that they U-haul it, which is, I'm sure you know what that is. You kind of rush into it, and
What do you do on a second lesbian date? You hire
move
a
in.
U-Haul.
You move in together,
Right.
and it's happened to me. And even when I was thinking, let's take this slowly. I don't know you yet. I've
Right.
had girlfriends just invite themselves to move in with me.
I had that happen with a
And
guy once.
I know
yeah.
it's 'cause I keep a
And
nice house, but
that
it's like, holy
hurt
crap.
the relationship.
It does hurt the relationship.
And I tried to
yeah.
make a resolve after that. I wouldn't move in with anybody until at least like 6 months, 9 months or something. Just, because you don't know what it's going to be like living with someone.
Ever.
Right.
For me, maybe never again. But the other theory I have is that not only do women rush into marriage, I think that women are less flexible about negotiating problems within the relationship. So infidelity.
Well, I would think infidelity especially.
Yeah.
And for some men, it's an agreement. Okay,
Exactly.
if we want to screw around, I don't care. Just don't tell me about it, or do tell me about it, or whatever. Let's do it together, or whatever. But I think men are a little more flexible about that.
I think so. That's one theory. And another theory is that women are much more likely by their temperament to be the ones to instigate divorce proceedings. Men are more likely to kind of let it go and ride out the problems and see what happens,
Right,
which is interesting.
Interesting.
And that's in straight couples too. It's usually the woman that files for divorce.
Right.
So
It'd be interesting to see what's happening. I would like to see some age ranges on all this too, because I think a lot of the people who got married in the first wave of same-sex marriages everywhere had been together for a long time, and they just solidified it.
And then there were others that weren't. They were carried along by the euphoria of that
And you
moment.
saw these 21-year-old kids they're not kids. My parents got married when they were 22. So, but there was a war on. It was. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. We one more story from the United States. In Louisville, Kentucky, a so-called Christian school, we have a picture of this, expelled a student for celebrating her birthday with a rainbow-themed cake. Now, she just ordered a multicolored cake.
And a sweater.
Oh, look at her. She's wearing
and she had a
rainbow
sweater as well. But
she's not gay.
No, and she said it was an innocent use of, it was an innocent use of the rainbow.
And the school said, because her mother, went public with this, the school said, look, she's had 2 years of lifestyle violations. They weren't specifying. And I guess the rainbow was the last straw.
I guess we've successfully hijacked that as a...
Well, now think about it. The rainbow, this is a Christian school. The rainbow was given to us by their God as a symbol that he, in this case, that God, was not going to harm people anymore after the whole Noah thing, right? The great flood, right? I'm not being sarcastic here.
No.
That's the story of the rainbow. But yes, the gays have co-opted it. Yes,
Successfully.
we spoiled it for you. All right, should we go to international? Are we ready or no? You got some other...
Sure, and I'm sorry I hijacked you with my lesbian
Not at all.
divorce
No,
story.
no.
Maybe there was something
That was a good discussion.
I needed to get out, didn't I? Get that off my chest.
We'll probably get a lot of viewer mail on that
I
one.
hope so. Did you know about this report in the Sage Journals? They've done a kind of global survey of homonegativity. It's actually a thing. They've sort of done a little cheat sheet of the countries that are most anti-gay and the ones that are most pro-gay.
Yeah.
And I'll just give you the two of each end of the spectrum.
2 best, 2 worst.
One best, one worst. Spain is the most positive in terms of homosexuality.
They've come a long way from...
Isn't that fabulous?
Generalissimo Francisco Franco.
to today. And guess which country is the worst?
In terms of negativity?
Homonegativity, as in
The worst.
gay is bad.
Russia?
Yes.
Is
you
it?
are.
No, it was a guess. But I mean,
Very good.
This is the Gay USA show, and we do report LGBTQ news from around the globe.
That's it.
I would be very nervous about being in Russia. I'd be nervous about being in a lot of places. I'd be nervous about being in a lot of places in America, too. But not Taiwan.
Not Taiwan.
President Tsai has been reelected. Now, she did same-sex marriage.
She
right?
did such a good job.
And that was not universally popular, but she was also the candidate who was most resistant to Beijing and to domination by Beijing.
Because, you know, Taiwan is an island as well, and it does not want to be Hong Kong. And I think one of the things that's very disappointing about Hong Kong is you saw Carrie Lam, another female leader. Her response was completely inadequate, and
well, I mean, she was under the gun from Beijing completely.
Right.
They own Beijing. They own it now.
Pretty much.
They agreed to a looser thing with Hong Kong for many years, and then they reneged on that. The Beijing
good
did.
for Taiwan. I was very pleased to see
in
that.
Brisbane. Back to Australia.
Back to my country.
A notorious gay conservative college student, Wilson Gavin, joined a protest with 20 people from his school against a drag time story hour, which they do in the libraries and the schools and things like that. It was very popular with the kids.
Come on, chill out. It's drag queens. Have some fun. Listen up. You're gay.
This guy can't chill out. And he was also a campaigner against same-sex marriage, even though he was gay. Well, after this thing went viral about this protest against drag time story hour, he took his own life the next day.
It's very sad.
It is a very sad story.
But he has other issues, and it's self-loathing. But really, when you're, how old is he? You know, he's
about 21 or 20, 21.
Gosh, it's Australia. Go to a pub, go to a drag show, get over yourself, and find support and help, mental health support somewhere else.
Human beings have trouble dealing with difference.
It's very sad.
But speaking of difference, same-sex married people can get married now in Northern Ireland. They can register as of this week. And they have to wait over there. They have a waiting period. They can't get married until Valentine's Day. So I guess it's a month wait after you register. All right, you've probably read the big stories about Grindr and privacy. Well, the Norway Consumer Council says Grindr violates European Union privacy rights. It gives the advertisers your GPS location, your device identifiers, and the fact that you're using a gay dating app. I mean, there's very little privacy anymore, so be careful.
I'm not doing the dating apps. No.
No, well, Lithuania.
That was good news.
Yeah, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that Lithuania was wrong not to investigate hundreds of online hate comments on Facebook. A gay man had posted a picture of himself kissing his partner in Lithuania. Talk about hostility. He got thousands of hate messages, and the court said that these could constitute an incitement to violence. Now, we don't have hate speech laws here in the United States, and we have free speech. I don't know. What is it like in Australia?
We have different defamation laws than you do here.
Yeah.
I don't think we have...
Kind of watch your P's and Q's more over there?
I think so. We don't have the same constitutional...
Yeah. I mean, I'm allowed to call you whatever I want, say whatever I want here. But if you don't like it, you don't have to watch, and you could go after me and try to get fired or whatever, you know? I mean, you can say it. We have the right to say things, but you could lose your job over saying certain things here, you know? All right. In Indonesia.
Oh, yeah, that was terrible. So here's my issue with what's happened.
All right, last week we told you about the guy, this Indonesian guy in the United Kingdom who was found guilty of the most rapes of anybody. He was picking up straight men outside a bar, taking them home, drugging them, and raping them. So this led in Indonesia to...
to the mayor. So the mayor of Depok in West Java wants to prevent the spread of LGBT because he thinks that's causing serial rape.
And he's offering therapy if you want to get over it.
Yeah, I think this is really... I want to say to Reinhard Sinaga, you're 36 years old, you're a PhD student, focus a little more on your dissertation.
Well, please, he's going to be in prison the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But the National Commission on Human Rights in Indonesia condemned this crackdown by the mayor that you mentioned. And in Bali, the authorities are investigating resorts that cater to gay people.
This is very disturbing. And
a lot of Australians go to Bali for vacation.
Right. Well, what used to happen. Bali, we do know that, Indonesia, that whole archipelago is really majority Muslim, but it used to be back in the day that Bali was mostly Hindu and Christian. Now that's all changing very rapidly, and it is very much, Australians would go to Bali much as you would go to the Caribbean.
Right.
For vacation.
Right.
And I think it's important to...
Except to some of those hostile countries like Jamaica.
Right. But I think it's important to,
Even though Noel Coward lived there.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Well, he wasn't out.
Yeah, he wasn't out, but he had some amazing parties, I hear. But in Bali, it's a little dangerous now because you can, Australians often go there like they would go to Cancun,
right.
Taiwan on, have fun. You're now in really a country that's getting very close to Sharia law. So... Need to be careful.
So this is an Aceh province. This is, but it is Muslim. Well, the country is vast majority Muslim.
Yeah.
But not strict in some places.
You know that Bali bombing in 2001?
Yes, remember.
2002? That was the tipping point. That's when it started to change.
And a lot of Australians died in that.
Yes,
at
indeed.
a resort. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, where are we?
Oh, we didn't mention Brazil. Did we mention Brazil?
No, go ahead.
Talking about lowering the age for gender reassignment surgery from 21 to 18.
Yep, and this is, Bolsonaro doesn't like it, but that's what they're going to do. And the Brazilian Supreme Court also is going to allow the Gay Jesus film on Netflix. So that's positive news from there, despite the fact that they have a Trumpian president.
They do have a Trumpian president, but they're doing quite well. Last year's court ruling to make homophobia and transphobia criminal offences, I think that's good. They're trying. I feel
courts can change,
courts can
as
change.
we're learning here.
Yeah, well,
all right.
Fingers crossed.
In South Africa, sad news, horrible news. The trans activist Nare Mfela has been murdered. Won a milestone case against discrimination and harassment as a student there, and there she is against teachers who would humiliate and misgender her. She was 28 years old. Her body was discovered with multiple stab wounds. There were no arrests. But they are questioning her boyfriend. Yeah, so we don't know. But we don't know that that's how she died.
It's shocking to see how long the police take to decide whether or not these murders of transgender women are, in fact, hate crimes. It's happening here a lot, too. When you read the police blogger, they're very reticent to actually...
hate crimes. I mean, as we report on transgender murders all the time, a lot of these women, especially women of color, transgender, they're marginalized and they get involved in rough trades in terms of sex work and in terms of drugs. And they're in environments, because they're not allowed to have education, regular jobs, all these other kinds of things that everybody needs to survive. So they take to these things, and so their murder rates are much higher. It's not like there are some cases where, yes, some people go out and say, I want to hurt a transgender person and
But mostly it's these guys, these cisgender males who obviously are going after these women because they like them,
right.
And then they decide they don't like them. And that's the problem, right. Not the transgender women.
Well, let's move to Poland with actually good news. The left-wing parties there have picked Rupert Bierdon, an out-gay man, as their candidate for president in the May presidential elections. He stands for women's rights, rule of law. Imagine that, rule of law. And the separation of church and state. He faces the favorite, President Duda, who's very anti-LGBT, and a liberal candidate who's a woman. Bierdon is a member of the EU Parliament, and he's the mayor of Słupsk.
It's a very Catholic country.
Oh, almost entirely. They did something about their Jews during World War II.
Oh,
well, I mean, certainly
horrible.
that was Nazis, but I mean, they had willing conspirators because a lot of the camps were in Poland, and people were happy to get rid of their Jewish neighbors. So there are hardly any Jews left there in Poland. All right, in Bhutan, the lower house has decriminalized same-sex relations, and that goes to the upper house.
And then the king has to sign off on that, so I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But that progress is quite significant to have already passed the lower house, and I feel that this has been influenced quite a lot from what happened in India, the repeal of the amendment of Section 377, because courts listen to each other, and the real... Over there, but the real argument, and that's all part of the Asian subcontinent, so the argument was it really is an infringement of human dignity. These are very old anti-sodomy laws that came from colonizers,
Yeah.
so they should all be overhauled.
Well, we try to make that pitch, especially with the African countries. Don't you know these laws were imposed on you by the colonizers from Britain and France
Right.
and all these, and Belgium and everything? But it doesn't work there.
Asia's a little bit more, I think, flexible in this way.
Well, China.
perhaps.
We were talking about it last week, right? I mean, I don't know how real it is, but they seem to be moving towards same-sex marriage to be in the modern world.
I think
they're not particularly treating their Muslim minority very well, but
Well, what happened in India was after a period of prosperity, people are wealthier and they become more sophisticated and they outgrow those laws. So if that's happening in China, happening in Singapore too, they're looking at repealing their
Really?
penal code as well.
very
Yes.
conservative Singapore,
Singapore's
yes?
very conservative, but in Singapore it's also called 377A, and it's a very similar anti-sodomy law. This is a 300-year-old law, so hopefully, fingers crossed.
And we've told you about the saga of Anwar Ibrahim in Malaysia. He was, a leading politician there, and to get rid of him, they locked him up for 10 years and charged him with sodomy. It was all false charges. Then, so he is the prime minister in waiting at this point. The current guy is about 94, seriously, is ready to pass on power to him. So he was accused again by some intern or something in his office of sodomy again. And again, these are trumped up charges. He calls it totally political. And the charges have been dismissed. So that's good. Anwar, you're finally going to get to be prime minister. AIDS news. WCBS, did you read about this?
Over to you.
All right.
I did not read.
So WCBS did a story on an HIV-positive man who was arrested by the Port Authority police in New York. This is the demonstration. And you can see Jason Walker and Ivy Arce sitting down there, Jason there on the right. These were two of our panelists on our HIV panel with Bill Ballman and Antonio Urbina a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, CBS did this story, and they implied that he had put the cop at risk for the HIV virus, and they called it an HIV attack because he spit, apparently, on one of the officers. And the union is like saying, this is attack with a deadly weapon.
What decade are we in? This is
well,
1986.
ACT UP protested. CBS says they fired the reporter. Well, they wouldn't confirm who it was. It was an unbyline story, and they promised staff training, but the police union is not giving up on this. The Queen's DA, Melinda Katz, has yet to indicate how she's going to handle the case. All right, entertainment news.
Oh, wow. Where do we begin?
Oscar nominations.
Oscar nominations.
Well, not a lot of gay stuff.
Not a lot of diversity at all.
My Taron Egerton didn't get a nomination.
Oh, I love him.
Didn't get a nomination.
I've
he
met
won
him.
the Golden Globe.
I've had a beer with Taron.
Did you?
I did.
What's he like?
He's so nice.
Is he?
He's so nice. He's so talented.
He plays Elton John in, what the hell's the name of the movie?
I'm a
Rocket
lesbian.
Man.
I'm a lesbian, but telling you.
Anyway, Elton John and Bernie Taupin did get nominated for the song in the movie. By the way, I think last week Ann said something about Elton John not winning a Grammy. No, he didn't win one with Bernie Taupin. He won a bunch of Grammys. But Bernie is his writing partner, and the Golden Globe was the first award they won together. So the Oscar nominations, you could count, I guess, Anthony Hopkins getting nominated for Best Supporting Actor for playing the closeted Pope Benedict, which they don't address in The Two Popes.
No.
I'm
not having it.
You could talk about Renee Zellweger, who plays the gay icon, Judy, who is probably going to win for Best Actress, right?
Probably, yeah.
But there is actually a hashtag that says, Oscars so straight.
Oh, I think so. So straight, so male, so white.
Well, sometimes we get a lot of gay and gay content and things like that. Antonio Banderas nominated. Pain and Glory's playing gay in that, is he not? I haven't seen the movie.
He's playing Pedro Almodovar, effectively, who's gay. So, but that's a whole other, that's a artist muse relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, yeah.
They don't want to have a gay life?
I was sort of, look, I didn't love Little Women. I wasn't a huge fan of the film for a couple of reasons.
Oh, okay.
One, I came out of it just in love with Timothée Chalamet in a film that's meant to be about women. I'm like, why do I love him so much? But he's just terrific. He steals everything. He's gorgeous. I do
he's
feel
very
though
pretty.
He's gorgeous, isn't he? Yeah. But I do think that it was as well directed as other films on this list. And why doesn't Greta Gerwig get a nod? I mean, it was as good as anything else here.
Could it be sexism?
Could it be?
Well, you know, the directors nominate the directors, and they did let a lot more younger directors into the directing group. But I don't know. The Oscars, hey, it's a trade show.
It's pretty much a trade show, right?
I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, and our awards are going to be given out this weekend. I have yet to vote. I get to vote up until Friday at noon, and I will vote.
Do you know, this is what I would want to do?
I'll be interested in your suggestions.
In my suggestions, all right. Here's what I think. I think if you're going to keep having a gendered category for actor and actress, have a gendered category for director. Because why? Why are we distinguishing between actors and actresses? Because most plots are either based around action or romance. These are gendered actions, right? Well, here's the thing. If we took away actress versus actor, let's be honest, the whole category, if it was just best actor, it would all be men. Every year it would be men. So to make this a level playing field, we need to have male and female directors. We have to. Otherwise, we're never going to see a woman win Best Director.
Maybe we could have one woman and one man from each state be the senators. Why not? They have some of these gender equity things in the nomination of delegates to the convention, for instance. But I did see, these are all things to ponder.
All things to ponder.
I saw a bunch of movies this week because I'm going to be voting. I saw 1917.
What did you think?
Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Well, it's a World War I film by Sam Mendes.
How is it different to, say, Dunkirk, for example?
I found, well, it is a lot more action because it's just this, it's a one-shot movie, or they try to make it look like it's one shot, like Birdman, without a break. I mean, of course there are, but they don't show you. And it's just one camera following.
Like one take, we call it a one take.
Basically, the movie is these two young guys are told at the front, are said, you got to get a message to across the enemy lines, or 1,600 people are going to get ambushed. You got to get the message, and then they go over the hill and try to get through the enemy lines, and it's a thriller in a way. It's almost like a sci-fi movie.
You know,
but they've got a picture of the guy who's the star of it, Gordon McKay.
Oh, yeah.
The only reason I'm showing you him is because he played a young gay activist in the movie Pride, which was one of my favorite films. And that's when I'm bringing that up. Okay.
I remember him. Very interesting.
I saw Jojo Rabbit. Have you seen?
That's by a New Zealand director.
It's
good.
He plays Hitler in the movie, who was an imaginary friend of a 10-year-old kid in Hitler-Jugend.
Interesting.
A lot of people can't get the first 15 minutes. It is appalling to listen to this little boy talk about how much he hates Jews and how they have tails and all this kind of stuff. He's a cute little kid. Wow. Well, I'm giving you the beginning, and then his imaginary friend is Hitler, who's very campy, and so. Wow. But ultimately, it's a very serious film about fascism. Scarlett Johansson plays his mother. She got an Oscar nomination. And so this kid, Roman Griffin Davis, though, he should have gotten a nomination. I think it's an indictment of anti-Semitism and fascism. And I also found it very effective and liked it a lot as well.
Right. And similarly with Joker, you've got a film.
11 nominations.
Interesting.
Joaquin Phoenix as a deeply mentally ill and violent anti-hero. It is very disturbing. It's sort of set in the Taxi Driver era, you know. It's even though it's Gotham City, it's a lot. I think it's appealing to people because it's a lot like our times. And I saw Bombshell.
I loved it.
I loved it.
Did you love it too?
I loved it.
Good.
Bombshell is about Roger Ailes and the sex harassment of Gretchen Carlson and Megyn Kelly. Now,
how is Charlie?
Charlize Theron.
My future ex-wife you're talking about.
I mean, did you even recognize her?
She's fantastic.
She looks exactly like Megyn Kelly. She talks exactly like Megyn Kelly. She didn't get a nomination. Oh, she did.
She did.
She got it. And Margot Robbie as the aspiring Christian reporter.
Aussie.
Lesbian, right? I'm giving too much away. It's a terrific indictment of Fox, Roger Ailes. John Lithgow, you're very brave to play this creep. And Roger Ailes.
And lovely little cameos with lots of gay people, like Colin Taylor has a cameo. Did you pick her out?
I missed her. Who was she?
So she plays the secretary to Roger Ailes, who basically...
She's the secretary.
Lets the women in, and she knows what's going on.
She's playing the secretary. You don't recognize these people in this movie. Anyway, it should have gotten a Best Picture nomination.
You know, it's interesting. I've read some bad reviews. I've read some people say they don't like it. They don't think it's resolved enough at the ending. But I would rather go away from a film wanting more than wanting it all tied up with a bow.
I just thought it's one of the best films I've seen this year.
Good.
All right. We're getting towards the end of our time. Other entertainment news.
Oh, we've got lesbians coming to Broadway, very possibly.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about that?
Cynthia Nixon is going to bring Jane Chambers, the late Jane Chambers, last summer at Bluefish Cove.
It's a classic
I have to admit,
play.
I never saw it.
I've read it. I've read it when I studied theatre.
Yeah.
This is a classic lesbian play, and it's a perfect play for an ensemble of lesbian actors. It's about, women renting a house by the beach. A straight woman wanders in, and all the fault lines are exposed.
I think all these lesbians are responding to all these damn gay plays, The Inheritance, the revival of The Boys in the Band, and they're saying, what about us?
What about us?
So the producers are Ellen and Portia,
the big guns,
Lily
Ellen and
Tomlin
Portia.
and Jane Wagner, and the 4-time Tony winner, I don't know her, Harriet Newman Levy. L-E-V-E, Levy.
I'd say Levy.
From this is a play from 1980. Yeah. And then I see that, I'm just going to recommend this if you haven't seen it yet. Well, it's playing in Washington and New York this month. Matthew Bourne's homoerotic Swan Lake. We have a picture. I saw it many years ago in London, and it's played here. It's going to be at the Kennedy Center January 21, 26, and it's going to be at the City Center in New York for 13 performances, January 30th to February 9th. And we have a coming out this week of someone 41 years old.
Somebody who I never heard of, I have to admit.
You never saw the movie Road Trip? The nerdy guy in Road Trip, where they go all around Europe and everything. Anyway, DJ Qualls, his name is. He was in Breaking Bad as well.
Right.
He came out publicly on the Jim Jeffries show in San Diego. Yep, I'm gay. Been this way the whole time. Tired of worrying about what it would do to my career.
Oh, wow.
So we have
Good for him.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think I have anything else.
Oh, okay. Well, then I was, when I did my London reviews last week, I'm not going to do this whole thing. I didn't even mention some of the theaters that I go to. If you're ever planning a trip to London, what you need to do is look into playhouses, because over there, these are the things that will give you probably the best things. We got a plaque there we got the National Theater. They've got 3 theaters. Check that out, the Donmar Warehouse. Flip through them. I'll talk about the Royal Court out there in Sloane Square, where Diana used to hang out. Almeida Theater, which is on a side street in Islington. The Kiln Theater in Kilburn. What else have we got? We've got this little Finborough Pub Theater.
Gorgeous.
50 seats, and they do wonderful work. They do plays that haven't been done in 75 years.
Wow.
I like the Park Theater out there in Finsbury Park, and I've never been to the Bridge Theater, but it's being run by Nick Heitner, and he used to do the National Theater, and I want to check that out as well. There's also the Young Vic, the Old Vic, the RSC, and the Globe. I'm going to put this in our email, so sign up for our emails. So if you're or write me if you're planning a trip. This is how I advise you find shows by doing that, by going to these playhouses. Okay. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
It's been great. We will see you next week. I think Anne's going to be back, but it's been wonderful being with you.
I've loved my time here. Thank you, Andy, so much.
Good to see you.